Minister, I thank you for sitting through this debate. I think it's one of the most important debates and it should take place at a regular interval. I also welcome the good news that is in this, that you've still stood your ground in relation to the negotiations with Iceland. But if anything brings home how the fisheries policy from Europe is not sustainable, you talk about sustainable, but it's actually the common fisheries policy is anything but sustainable. And we've heard that this debate has taken place in the context of the inshore fishermen who were up recently to the committee, and that has been described as harrowing, the conditions there. We've heard the figures in relation to the mackerel quota, 1% going to the inshore fishermen, 2,000 people at a 2,000 minimum there, as opposed to 99% going to a small number of boats. So to me, the common fisheries policy was never sustainable. And you're trying to stand the ground. It's like holding back the tide against, at the moment, you're standing your ground, and then ultimately qualified majority voting will come into play, I understand. So if we look at this then, I have a few questions. In the time, it was not going to be a question and answer, but I would like if you would answer them. You've announced, and I welcome that there's a new consultation process in relation to the trawling, the fish trawling within the 6 miles. It goes back to 2018. The announcement was made in 2018 that you'd go ahead with this policy, which was wonderful. I've praised you many times for that policy. It was the first light, or the first beacon of hope. And here we are in 24, no policy, and we're starting from scratch. Now, when it went to the Court of Appeal held on very narrow grounds. The government, the department, had failed to notify the EU and England. That's all. Have you rectified that? When do you think the policy will actually be in place? Because the fishing, the removal of sprat from our waters is truly frightening. And again, I'm out of time to read it out, but it's way over what's sustainable. The amount of sprat being taken out in an unsustainable manner. So can you tell me when that policy will be in place? Can you tell me when this Irish inshore fisheries sector strategy, I know you're not directly responsible for that strategy, it's now out of date. Where is that strategy at BIM? Or this hasn't been mentioned. When is that going to happen? In relation to the Heritage Bill, where has that gone to? The Heritage Bill for the islands and for inshore fishermen. What has happened in relation to that? And if I could just zone in on the importance of, I read this out, I didn't read the whole out yesterday in relation to small businesses, and they're the backbone of our community, as are the small fishermen. And this is one Bíal and Awan I Grílar na Gaeltachta, Tíbhla Tíji Cahar, agus is Bíal and Atá I Gist, agus fain siad na hábh ábhar go léir ó na daoine áitiúla, ó muo, agus agus iarthar na Gaillimhe. And chuireann sé spot solas tábhacht agus atá sé cabhair a chóirt don na gnó áitiúla. If we've learned anything, Minister, from COVID and from climate change, it's that we must go local and we must have transformative action. And if anything captures that for me, it's this business here. I don't wish to single out one business, but I think it's important. There's a business, a restaurant very near TG Cahar. It was set up during COVID. And in the context of our debate on small businesses yesterday and how important they are to the country, the backbone of the country, this one business has one paragraph here setting out where they get all their ingredients of our for their restaurant. So they source locally first. Then they get their fish. Somebody goes out to the cant, the auction in Rossaville, and gets the fish. The vegetables come from the area, or they come from East Galway, or they come from Mayo, all sourced locally or organically, from the cheese, so on. But I'm zoning in on the fish, because if anything captures what's happened to the unsustainability of the fisheries policy from Europe is Rossaville, a natural deep water port that has utterly lost its fish processing, that is now looking at wind power, which I welcome, but it must be done, as Deputy Richard Barrett said, in a balanced way. So there's so many issues here I'd love to talk about in terms of sustainability and learning, but time is limited. So I would ask for this to be a regular debate with updates, and you might get a chance to reply to my 2 specific questions. Garmagad.
Next, here's the Minister in reply, 5 minutes. Yeah, thanks, Cahir. Look, and listen, just to thank everyone for their contributions this evening, and I'm certainly happy to do this at any time that the Dáil would seek time. I would, and for as long as is necessary. Again, if at the Business Committee you want to allocate more time to everyone and more time for answers, I would be delighted with that, because I have to say, of all the sectors that I see in terms of the amount of nonsense that is spewed on social media and the amount of misinformation that's out there, it's more prevalent in the fishing sector than it is anywhere. So you can't beat actually getting down and discussing the issues face to face, eyeball to eyeball, and teasing them out in good detail. That's why I go around the country. That's why I've gone to the vast majority of piers and harbours to meet with fishermen directly. That's why, for example, I'm having a community meeting in Killybegs tonight, again, to meet with representatives locally and to talk real turkey, to talk straight and to cut through the myth and to cut through the nonsense that we often see. Listen, Deputy Connolly, first of all, in relation to the 6 Mile review, so there's about an 8-week consultation period now. I hope to have this finalised and the policy published by the final quarter this year. By the autumn this year, I want to have this concluded. All the consultations come in fully considered and brought into play. As I say, Minister Creed did really good work on this before. On a minor technicality, it was struck down by the courts. Took a long time to come through the courts, and now we have to go through the process. Obviously, things have changed in terms of the evidence and the situation. We have to do those assessments and had to do those over the last few months since 2018 in order to do the consultation, and that's now underway.